Hello, this is Marina Mangano, and I haven't done a video in a little bit. A lot has happened since I last posted some of the chapter discussions of my book, The Gift of Healing Hands. In this time, I've gotten married. There's been a lot of a holiday season, and I've been asked multiple times by my dad, actually, to do a video for the epilogue. And while I've been hesitant to do it, I'm like, oh, thanks, Dad. Yeah, I'll think about it. I hadn't really thought it was a part of the meat of this book and didn't really have a lot of, educational resources or anything that I really wanted to talk about. But it's so interesting when you finally lose all of your excuses, lose all of those resistances to doing something because of a simple action. Something had to take place, something in my practice and my life had to take place for it to sink in that I wanted to do a video for this. And so I'm very glad that I waited and that I waited for the right time to do this, because I had an experience today with a patient that it just reignited this flame inside me of, this is why I wrote this book. This is why I've worked to just fine-tune my message and my tact in how I speak to patients, because as a trusted medical provider, our opinion is often taken as our medical expertise and some finite determinant that is going to stay with a patient. Like, the words that come out of my mouth could stay with the patient for forevermore. So while reading the epilogue, I'm going to share a little bit about my patient's story today and talk about kind of the summary of this book is my healing equation. The healing equation is the combination of an intuitive provider plus an informed patient to produce an impetus towards progress. So those two parties have to be present, have to come together to initiate any type of forward action. Oftentimes forward action really is not possible without getting somebody to heal a lot of anchors or some trauma seeds so they can be fully present before taking and preparing that step forward towards the future. So most of this book will jump between two worlds of me talking to other providers and other doctors, other healthcare body workers, and then me talking to what I would perceive as the patient. So someone who is wanting to heal, wanting to learn more about this world of intuitive medicine. And so I kind of back and forth, I'm talking to, the healer and who's healing throughout this entire book. And why I do that is because I'm so passionate about teaching that knows no boundaries. I want to teach who this information will benefit, and I want to teach the person who will apply this to benefit someone's health. So try, while you're reading, if you've already gone through the book, maybe if there was a chapter or a section that didn't really land with you, didn't really speak to you, like, oh, this doesn't apply to me, this is for medical physicians, try to go back. Maybe, I hope you marked that area, I hope you highlighted it, or actually it may be an area in the book that you didn't highlight, that you kind of like skipped over, glazed over, and try to go back and read through that section with a different look on it. If you were privy to a conversation between two medical providers, it may give you a sense of, wow, if these people are having this kind of conversation, does everybody know that they talk like this to each other? Does everybody know that they have access to this type of care? And if they did know, would they ask different questions? Would they approach the short time that you are with your surgeon or your medical care provider differently? So you're reading through the parts that may seem a little bit more physical, a little bit more, more technical words as a portal to what to discuss with your provider, what you should expect from your provider. And if you find that you're not getting that from where you are, you now have these blinders off that someone out there does think this way, will give you this type of care, this type of attitude, and I think it's really beneficial. So going through the healing equation is the intuitive provider plus the informed patient. So as the provider in any medical specialty, if you will not take the time to authentically answer a patient's questions or concerns, they will find someone who will. If you miss the opportunity to educate a patient about the status of their condition and the empowering plan for recovery, they will find someone who will. If you refuse to recognize a patient's need to be heard and gently comforted with a rub on their shoulder, I guarantee you they will find someone else who will. And this is not a scare tactic to make providers feel like they're not doing their best care or anything like that. It's just a little fresh reminder of, if you've been in this system for so long, we get desensitized, we get burnt out, especially through these past couple years through the pandemic. I mean, it's compassion fatigue syndrome. You've hit a level of empathy turned to sympathy, turned to apathy. There's just this numbness within a lot of providers because so many people are reaching out to them. So as that provider, try to change things where you need to. Look for different opportunities, maybe like new teaching methods, just something to re-inspire you. Instead of a huge change in career, maybe just a sidestep, a different outlet, a different environment, something that makes you passionate again and gives you that autonomy to speak to someone like a human. Basically be the provider that you would want to go to. Simple as that. And why that comes to mind for me today is because I've been working with a certain woman for probably about 3 months at this point. And we've always worked on, I won't call them superficial things, but we always work on surface level things with this woman. So knee pain, back pain, neck pain. Maybe in bits and pieces, I've heard her mention certain anxieties, or that she's being treated for certain anxieties from her primary care physician as well as therapy. But I never felt like we had the relationship to really create an environment to dive into some of these insecurities. Even if I've been wording and kind of trying to piece around maybe if she had a trauma, trying to figure out where some of the source of terror, I'll call it, has come from. And today was the day. I have no idea why or what changed. But today when she came in, she told me about her fear of a claustrophobia and how that's influenced her, how that's limited her throughout her life, certain aspects like airplanes, certain cars, parking garages. But why it finally came to light today was that we've been waiting for her to get an MRI on something to rule out a couple pathologies. And she told me that she's fearful of the MRI because of this underlying claustrophobia. And so just, whether it took a couple months for her and I to get to this point, whether the stars had to align, she had to be in a really vulnerable place or in a really safe space, I had to be in the proper mentality, energized enough to have this conversation with her. I'm not sure, but today was the right day, and that was really the target of our care today. And why this is pertinent to our conversation about this healing equation is the last 2 seconds of this appointment, actually, she really opened up and told me the words that a previous provider had said to her. And the 20-minute session prior to that, 30-minute session prior to that, I think we released a lot of barriers for her to either freshly remember what this doctor had said to her, or to feel like it was important enough to share with me. So we went through a lot of visuals today, went through preparing her to physically identify the parts of her body that trigger her prior to a panic attack. And we did a lot of really anchored, safe, heavy front body points, all because certain medical providers, surgeons, previous people she's worked with in the past have all blamed her pain and her issues on how she's built. So they've just always said, well, you're really, you're really tall, you're really lean. This was just waiting to happen. You were just a bomb waiting to go off because of the structure of your vulnerable body. And how many years she's heard this, I have no idea, but it is so ingrained within her system that she believes that she is lesser than, weaker than, more vulnerable. So joint pain that she's had, she is very tall, she is very lean, and overall, she's come to me with verbiage like, oh, I have horrible posture, I know I'm really weak, I know I need to strengthen. And it's hard to dissect and tell which of these words actually come from her or which have been implanted in her from medical trusted providers, that now she has found so many stories to concrete and perpetuate that perception of herself that her body now believes it. And everything she does is the self-fulfilling prophecy of, just because she's built like she is, she has to be in pain for the rest of her life. And so we used this little keyhole of feeling claustrophobic to pull this conversation to the surface. And we've talked about a lot of things for the past couple months of just working on some strengthening or some random things here and there, and none of this has ever come up. So people are portals. The conversations you have with certain people are portals, and those little portals for a provider, if you're not in the headspace or have the time or give someone the time, they're trying to talk to you. They're trying to hand you this key to their pain on a platter. And so it takes a very special person on the healing side to recognize and safely dive into that portal so it can be healed and it can be released. So throughout the rest of our care today, she's feeling a lot better. We pull her up to a sit and we bring her back, just do a couple sensory things to bring her out of these visuals, out of this mental scan in her body. And finally, just in almost like we switched a trigger and we were just kind of casually talking like people again. And she said, yeah, my husband was in the office with me and I totally, forgot that this guy said this to me. He said, well, we can't have everything. You're really pretty and we can't have everything. So that's just how you're built. Your knees, your knees are going to hurt, but we can't have everything. And she said, thank goodness my husband was there, because he would not have believed me if I had relayed this message. He would have thought I was hypersensitive and, skewed the words. But this man was blaming my joint pain on how I'm built and that I should get over it and kind of figure out how to be in pain forever, because, at least I'm pretty and I've got that going for me. I just closed my eyes and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You almost have to laugh at this point, because I hear so many examples of this. Some person had dismissed a patient or something that was really important to them with this trivial, superficial answer just to be quick and get out the door and end a session. And in my healing equation, while I said I'm not threatening providers, I am saying that they will find someone else who will. And I know this to be true because I am so often that next person or that final person. Yes, it's my message. Yes, it's part of my care plan that I work with everybody on this mentality of how they perceive the healthcare system and healing some wounds up to this point. So yes, I have this conversation with probably more people than a normal office does, but there is a reason that I continue to do this, because I have seen how effective this sympathetic conversation is on resolving pain that a lot of people haven't been able to help with. And for many years, sometimes chronic pain. So if I, twice a day, I hear a story from a new patient of, this guy told me this, or this woman really didn't, did the same thing to me that everybody else does. And so using all these experiences and just the passion in my heart to heal my own wounds from more of the Western modern medical system, to shed that light, share that light with other people so they can move forward in their own pain. So I wanted to share that story about my patient today, just because it proves for me, it goes to show why I do what I do. One of the main reasons that I wrote this book is to just start a new ripple effect of reminding providers how to take their words very seriously. Remember that their words can build, can heal, can initiate, can save, as well as the negative opposites that I'm not even going to mention. So that is the huge first chunk of this healing equation. Because ultimately, without someone to heal, healing hands cannot elicit their full potential. Are we even considered doctors if we don't have patients? So don't forget who makes you every day a doctor or a healthcare provider or somebody who works with manual medicine. And then the other half of this kind of polar concept of this book, of this equation, is the patient, or maybe a future patient. And patient is such a medical word. I just mean a receiver, someone who's going to receive care, receive the time to have a conversation, receive insight into a part of their body that's just not their specialty, they didn't know existed. So as the patient, please do not be afraid to speak to us. Each question that you ask portrays where you are in your understanding of the body. So the more questions you ask me, I can kind of categorize you as, oh, I'm going to talk to you the most today about, for example, the information in chapter 1 of my book. Or, wow, I didn't know you were involved in all these type of different yoga classes, and you've had some acupuncture before. So I categorize this patient based off the questions they gave me. As, okay, I'm going to talk to them about a little bit more advanced topics about their body in this chapter. Healing is not a quick fix. So ultimately, it is a sustainable progression that adapts to the growing demands of the new goals, the new hobby, and the new changes of your life. So healing is not this one and done thing. There's always a next step. There's always a deeper layer. And with the right provider, with the right group of providers, meeting the right provider who tells you that they're not the right provider, but gets you to where you need to be, those are constantly going to change. And so I think, and I'm very proud of the collaboration of information that have been put together in this book and in my daily conversations with a lot of the patients that I have. And even when I'm in a room and I'm not the doctor, they don't know that I'm the doctor in the room. I just love witnessing conversations between people who are trying to be sympathetic, be empathetic towards what they hear their friend going through, and just, telling them, wow, yes, validating their emotions and how they feel about that, as well as listening, and then the right time offering the next step, offering a recommendation. So that is the summary of this book, the summary of the healing equation. I am a constant learner and I'm always going to be adding to this, but I think this really is the foundation of so many different topics and things that I look forward to improving in the future. And I hope that this message and this opportunity for a better relationship with your mind, with your body, and with your trusted healthcare providers really speaks to you. So thank you so much for listening to that, for caring about your body, not giving up, still finding that new doctor, retelling your story to a new stranger, because we are out there waiting for you and we cannot wait to help. Have a great day.